Now, DeepWoken is on a pretty huge player rise right now. We went from around averaging 5 to 7,000 players to around 15k right now. So I figured the best way to help out the new players is kind of giving a level guide from the harder area in DeepWoken, which is power 10 to 20 right now. Now, the first spot I would recommend anyone newer to DeepWoken is at Burning Stone Gardens, and that is the Golems. Now, at power 10, they are relatively easy, and they will give you enough XP to continue powering up until you're about power 14. Now, the pros of doing Golems are pretty simple. It is really easy to do, will give you decent XP up until about power 14, and they are a good amount of extra events that do spawn in Burning Stone Gardens that do give decent items or like just general XP from events. Now, the cons for doing golems is pretty simple also, and that is the fact that the golems don't count as event XP, and there is only around 4 you could kill on a cycle. So it is relatively slow compared to other methods, and you will get Voidwalkered on a good amount because it is on the way to Duke or the Galestone quest. And the other kind of big one that I hate about this area is the acid rain. So you usually want to be able to at least place a guild base or just have a campfire on you relatively at all times. Now, next up, I would suggest any newer player to go to is Mecha Sharkos. Now, I do know most people probably think this is a pretty big jump in difficulty. However, if you are used to regular Sharkos, it is only 2 extra moves you gotta kind of learn and go around. So I would recommend it a lot for newer players. Now, Mecha Sharkos do have a lot of pros, and the biggest one is the fact that each one relatively counts as an event. This makes it very easy to get XP because you are getting individual XP for the kill, and then you're getting event XP on top of it. Now, since these do count as events, as I said, you are getting a chest for every kill or so. So it will be a really good note/armor farm if you are looking for like decent HP boots and whatnot. Now, the last pro for this area is the fact that it is relatively in middle of all the wind gates in the Eastern Luminate. So if you need to go to Songseeker, it is relatively easy, or like Star Sweat Valley. Kind of just in middle of everywhere you would want to go in this Luminate. Now, the cons for Mecha Sharkos are the fact that half of them are in a void zone, and in the void zone you are forced to usually fight around 2 in each event, so it is relatively harder because you are fighting multiple. And the other big one is that this is also a pretty popular area to get void walked on. Now, the next place up is the Crypt of Unbroken. Now, if you do not like Voidwalkers, this area is better for you because I don't believe they could spawn on you either inside or outside unless you're too far away. Now, the Crypt is going to be slightly more difficult for newer players because it is a lot more parry-based gameplay for these. Now, the pro list for the Crypt is very similar to the Mecha Sharkos, where, you know, it is medium difficulty, it is really good XP, really good notes. You can get the legendary weapon Grand Suda, and you don't get any Voidwalkers in this area, which is a pretty big positive. Now, the cons for here is also pretty similar, where it is all in a void zone. There is a good amount of players here though, so you might get into some conflicts with just other progging players. And the third one, which is a pretty big deal to me in most cases, is it just kind of takes long. The fights are long, you know, you're fighting 3 people for one event, so it is a little slower, like, fight-wise. Now, if you want a more action-packed prog that's just you kind of fighting anything and relatively everything, the Hive is probably your best bet. Now, I won't say anything outrageous, like the Hive is the best way for you to get XP, but it is probably one of the faster ways to get it. Now, pro-wise, the Hive does probably have the biggest list, and it is relatively easy. There is tons of event spawns that will happen, so you will be getting a good amount of XP, a good amount of notes, and you can kind of sit there from level 10 to 20 because there is just a good amount of XP everywhere. Now for the Hive, there isn't too many negatives that I could really think of other than the fact that Voidwalkers are really rampant in the area, and that's just because, you know, you pick a 4-star there, you kill them, you will get like half of inventory of just good gear to sell. Other than that, this is just me kind of nitpicking. You can get stuck in just a mass amount of spawns and kind of die to it relatively easy. But other than that, there's not really too many negatives about the Hive. Now, I won't show any background footage of this, but you can do the depths. You know, a lot of people do believe the depths are a really good way to level. Now, I don't really think it's worth going there, especially as new players, just to try to prog. Now, if you do like farming the depths, you know, all power to you, but personally, I just don't believe farming in the depths is really worth it unless you need like master armor materials or like deep bound. I don't think deep bound's worth the effort, especially when there's something like TO1 to boost you way faster than what the depths could really give you. Now for the depths, I'm gonna say the pros are going to be the fact it is medium difficulty, more or less. There's tons of events. There's good notes, good XP. You can also go from power 10 to 20 just like Star Sweat Valley, and you can kind of get all your Mastercraft materials very easily. Now there are a good amount of cons for the depths too, however, so you can just run around for like 5 minutes not finding a single event spawn, so it is kind of sporadic. Now, usually when you don't find any events for a while, they will be like one mass spawn on you that's like not six, but like 2 or 3 events that can trip you up and get you wiped fairly easily. Other than that, there's just really depth skankers that you have to worry about, and it's not too common, but there is always just the oddball here and there, you know. Now, other than those 5 locations, there are better ways to power up, and these will be boss fights. Now, I won't go too much into detail or like show, you know, the cons and pros of doing these, but that's because if you are a newer player, you're not really going to be able to do these. But if you do want to give it a try after you hit power 15 or so, I will leave guides to each boss that I do recommend, which is Duke or Ferryman at 16 plus. So if you do want to watch those, they will be in the description. But that is all I do have for you today, so thank you for watching.